135 years. So I'm definitely sure I don't think I'm going to see it in my lifetime. So I think we're going to be talking about this issue for a long, long time. So, yes, it's a call for action for all women, it's a call for action for society in general. Gendered conditioning, we've talked about it so much, but it's so deep rooted in our psyche. And time again, we keep coming back to the fact that it is holding women back. When we listen to stories about strong, independent women, they shape who we are today. We hope that today, what we're going to talk about, these stories and these ideas, will also inspire you to pursue your passion. I'm today joined by Nishtha Anand, and she, like many women, in the middle of their career, she was overwhelmed. Overwhelmed, why? Because she became pregnant, which is very normal, very natural, the most natural thing a woman will go to, but it becomes very overwhelming. And her concern, would she also fall off the career trajectory like countless others? So it's so funny that when we think about these life events, we think about pregnancy, we also think about career, and it's definitely overwhelming to us. She's documented her findings in her new book. It's called Awakening the Rainmaker. And we'll understand what that means because when I saw the title, I was like, very interesting. But what does this mean and who's a rainmaker? It's a guide to gender equality. So, Nishtha, a very warm welcome. We're very excited to have you with
Thank
us.
you so much, Sukriti. Thank you for having me over.
That's awesome. I can hear the dog barking. He's excited too.
Looks like it.
So let's talk about this because, what is, first of all, a rainmaker? Why the title Awakening the Rainmaker? And how did you awaken your rainmaker? Lots of questions piled off to you.
To you. I think the title goes back little to my background. I started my career in the field of investment banking, and there you find these rainmakers. Now rainmakers are people who are at very senior position in the organization, and they enjoy a lot of command, a lot of respect in the company. They are very assertive in the way they conduct business, and all these important decisions on hiring, firing, promotions, bonuses rely on them. But as a young professional starting out, Sukriti, you'll be surprised. There were not many women who were rainmakers around me. And the stat that you said on 135 years in India, in fact, less than 3% CEOs are women. So as a young professional who's starting out, I really miss those women rainmakers around me. And that was the motivation when this book came along, and when I finished the manuscript, I was like, okay, what should I name it? And this title just came to me, that it's Awakening the Rainmaker, like awakening that source of power within you, and within people around you. Even that's important, so that each one of us can really live a full life where even we are respected, and we command that respect for the work we are doing, be it at home or be it in the corporate arena, if you so choose to join the workforce.
What really, shocked me, and I think we'll see this on this next slide. You're talking about a lot of very, very powerful women, right? They are they are born, but they face the same issues.
Right.
They face the same questions that come to all of us. That what you see women, and I know I was asked this when I had my twins, and when the twins were born, the first question was, "Ma'am, will you continue to work? Ma'am, how are you going to be a CEO? And how are you going to handle?" So, so these questions are very, very real. I personally, and first I didn't even think about them, but so many people questioned. They said, what, you work such a crazy schedule. Will you be able to do it? And I think that slide that we have, Rohit, and if you can show that, the one that shows that, what are the some of the questions, and please take us through, because I think that solidifies that this is not something that I think one woman faces. These are questions that all women face.
That's true. In fact, Sukriti, that was the reason when I was writing this book, because gender equality is a topic that one can get very emotional or bitter about it, or people may feel that it's about man bashing. But no, this book, in fact, given my business background too, this book I have written from a very objective standpoint, and I'm just trying to show that when I talk about equality, I mean it for everybody, be it, men or women, so that everyone can pursue their passions and not be affected by their gender. So the site that we have on, these are in fact, tidbits from these powerful women, some of the most phenomenal women India has in business. Even they have faced these biases. So for instance, I interviewed Naya Sagi, who's the founder and CEO of Baby Chakra, and she is a Harvard Business School alumna. But even then, when she was in some, fundraising discussions, and she was pregnant then, and she was asked this question, maybe you should consider this after your delivery. So her biology took the center stage versus her credentials and her work experience. Or I'm sure, Sukriti, if you have so much experience, you may have noticed it too. Often as women, we are expected to be more participative in management style, more docile. And if you see a woman who's assertive, and even if that assertiveness is delivering results, even then, you may be given a feedback that you need to mend your
You
management
could be
style as well.
nicer.
You have to be nicer. Yes, you have to be nicer and more docile, because that's what people are used to. These are the stereotypes that are out in people's minds, be it consciously or unconsciously. Then there's another very powerful thing that came across. I've also interviewed, for instance, Zia Modi in the book, and she has been the most powerful business in India, Sukriti, as per Fortune, for over a decade now. She is the daughter of the former Attorney General Soli Sorabji. But despite that, when Zia started her career back in the 80s as a lawyer, even she saw that question mark in the eyes of people around her. She's like, my clients, my co-counsels, I could see that I had to earn their trust, and I just couldn't afford to look stupid in front of them. So she had that pressure of being the one off. Often even women in the audience can relate to this. When in their organizations, if they are at a certain senior level, they feel like, okay, now the responsibility of the entire species on me. It's like, the company will judge all women basis how I perform. So that may have happened to a lot of women out there. Or, this was a very interesting, or in fact, a very sad input that I got from Dr. Rohini Golbore, who is, by the way, the only Padma Shri awardee when it comes to the field of science, only woman to have been awarded a Padma Shri award. And she said that, one of the mentoring advices which were given to me back in the day when I was a young researcher is to find a job in a woman's college. So this is again, and she was very sweet to say, Sukriti, that maybe they thought something of my ability when they said that. But she was like, but I do feel that somewhere my gender did have a role to play there. And just imagine, if she had taken this comment to her heart, the country would have lost a brilliant scientist. And so all my audience, all the women out there, through this book, I'm just trying to get across these stories, trying to tell them that you're not the only one if you've faced this or you've observed this. There are scores of successful women, there are scores of other women who have faced this too. You're not the only one, and the solution here really is to start sort of discussing this with people around you. When you go through this, seek support, be open about it, like be assertive. Don't just step aside and lay back when you're hearing these things.
No, I think that's very, very good advice. And that comes back to the first advice. I think a lot of times we think that we are the only one facing this issue. And I think what you're showing through this book that, this is something that I thought was my generational issue, but this is something that is transcending even generations, and still women are facing it. And the first thing we need to do is just first be vocal and understand that possibly we are not alone. My favorite story was the one about Meher Padamji, of course, very, very famous, very popular. And, when she took over, I think, as the chairperson, and she had a huge responsibility on her. And she was, of course, taking over Thermax, a huge enterprise. But what she talks about so genuinely is the desire still to balance motherhood and career. So when you see that you see this, that even at the women that have made it to the top, you don't see this thing saying that, listen, you know what, it's a single-handed focus that I only want my career. You
Right.
see them saying that, listen, how do I balance? And I think this is a story that we keep hearing, and that story of balance. So please tell us more, because I loved her story, because she made it very clear it didn't matter, but she wanted to be there for every event of her children, whether
Right.
it was small or large.
So actually, you're right. This is Meher's example again. I loved here. Or most other women, Sukriti, most women in fact face the challenges when it comes to maintaining their personal and professional life when they're entering that phase of motherhood, because there's going to be a new tiny human in the lives as a couple. So I think the most actionable things that I got out from Meher's story or from the other stories that are covered in the book as well, I think the first thing that we all need to do is delegate. We have to learn to delegate, because at the end of the day, we have 24 hours in a day. And you really just cannot be a super parent and then a super professional as well. You have to prioritize. So, prioritizing, just making a list that what needs to be done when, and having a strong team in place to delegate things at home and even at work. If you are at a level, you need to be a little hands off on things which don't need your attention. Like Meher also said, right, that when it came to teaching the kids, I'm a little out of patience there. So I encourage them to study on their own. Or of course, there are people who
Teachers.
can help them to study. And so she chooses her battles like that, which is very important. Then another point which really stood out for me, and which is a very practical thing which women can do out there, make your partner a true partner, because a child is brought into the world by both a father and the mother. So you need to make sure that your partner is also equally invested into raising the child. I think that's very important. And this came across in my multiple conversations. In fact, for instance, Zia Modi, like I gave her example a while back as well. So she said, because my profession needed that much input from me as a lawyer, and she has three beautiful daughters who are very well accomplished today. She said, it was my husband who stepped in and who would manage the calendar around so that he could be with the girls, so that my daughters do not miss out on that important time. So she made her partner a true partner in the real sense. And if we look at organizations today, Sukriti, they are introducing the paternity leaves as well, so that fathers can also take 6 to 8 weeks of leaves to start with. I think that is very important to encourage men as well, that they need to get into that habit of caregiving for the family. It's not just, it's unfair on them also, because they also have that onus of being a breadwinner. That's their stereotype. So give men also that freedom, and then you will see dual careers thriving in our country, where not many women will step out of the workforce because they are mothers, because then a couple like a team will be able to manage things better.
And what I also loved, I think, and this comes from Meher, and I think there was the basketball sports star. Meher also said that time management, this
Yeah,
time management for women is very, very critical. And, I think we need to probably all be given courses on time management, because that would be something that we all need to take away. But I loved what the basketball star said, and I'm forgetting her name at the
that's
moment.
great.
Yes, she said two things. She said, you know what? We need the support of our parents and we need the support of our in laws. This has to be vital. So, to all the parents out there, please, if you're educating us, and you're spending so much time and money, you need to have that support, and that support system will start with the family. And then, they can't be like, a beta shadi kar lo, a beta bacha kar lo, you know
That's true.
because they've got to stick with you, because these are the people that you rely on. And I think the feminist one said very nicely that very few women will actually go against the family and the in-laws. So we're still not at that culture point where we're saying, okay, I want to defy. So we also know that there is a huge role that parents, in-laws, husbands need to start to play if we want to actually see successful women.
True.
I really love that about your book, because it brought it out from many different voices. Please do shed some more light on some of these stories.
So you're right, Sukriti. In fact, that was my aim. So I did some research for the book, of course, and I saw that the chances of a young girl or a woman pursuing her passion increases by as much as 70% if she has a story of a relatable role model in front of her. And that was the motivation for me to cover as many fields as possible in the book, because I come from a corporate background. but I wanted stories from science, from technology, from the sports arena, content creators, digital influencers. You name a field that I wanted to bring forward a story here, so that if there is any young girl who really wants to, let's say, pursue basketball as a career, so there's the story of Raspreet that she can relate to.
Yes.
And if she wants to go into the field of being influencer or digital content creator, there's a story of Chavi Mittal, a Jablin Persricha that I've covered in the book. And also another important thread that is running across these stories is, I wanted to make it less preachy and I wanted to make it practical, which is like, aligned to the Indian reality of things. Because even when I was pregnant, and if you read any books that are available from the West, like most of the books on gender equality are from Western authors, and they may suggest you things like, okay, walking out, like, more revolutionary sort of things. Like people may get an idea, because it's very common there to, let's say, the divorce rates are higher maybe, or those sort of suggestions. But in India, you're right, as you picked it up from the book as well, or as Japlin said, many women will not defy their in-laws, and that is the reality of India at the end of the day. So I wanted to make this a practical handbook. And that is why in these stories you may have seen, like, these women have made their choices. I think the most important thing is that you make your own choices, free of any burden or coercion from your parents, in-laws, or your partners. So somebody like a Chavi, when, because she was an actor to start with in television, and when she started a family, she switched to the digital platforms with, shitty ideas trending, and with being woman with Chavi, because she needed that freedom to be with her kids. Now that was a choice that she took on her own. She was not forced into it. So that's the takeaway for my readers as well, that, just take your own choices on your own, and don't pressurize yourself too much because of these choices. It's okay if it fits your situation, go ahead and take that choice. Like a Reba, like she's one of the renowned corporate lawyers of our country. When she had her child, she took 1 year of break. Now back then maternity leave was not 6 months, it was much less. But she took that choice on her own, so that's the right choice to take. And that is what I'm trying to, motivate all my readers as well, that it is okay to take those breaks. It is okay to, switch your careers, or it is also okay to stay the course on the career. Like Dr. Rohini Godbole, the Padma Shri, she says that, I decided not to have children because I wanted to continue my career as a scientist. Now that's a sad choice to take. Like no woman should be have to make that choice. But at least, I made that choice on my own terms back then. So that is very important. That has been a key takeaway from all the stories that I have, that all these women faced challenges similar to you and me and to all the people out there. But they made their choices on their own terms after analyzing the situation, and they stuck to it. It's not like, they were second guessing themselves always. They stuck to the choices they made. They were themselves in making these choices, and that's very important.
I also loved a story that you told about two brothers that married two different girls and how they actually adapted, and especially one who adapted to her circumstances quite beautifully. Can you tell us about that? Because that also shows the creativity that women can come up with in
Right.
actually pursuing their passions.
Yeah, so actually, I had this story which I've, and all these case studies, Sukriti, that are included on like a no names basis in the book or a changed name basis. These are all real conversations I had. These are like, I spoke to close to 100, 200 women out there who were so passionately sharing their stories. So I have this story of this lady called Natasha, who I've included in the book. And she was married. She's of course educated, but married at a young age. And when she made a very informed choice into marrying into a family where she knew that she will not be allowed to work, so that was her own choice to marry into that family. But after a few months of marriage, she realized that, I'm not using
And the
my
reason why I want you to bring this story is because this is a story that many women
women will relate
possibly,
to.
yes.
Yeah. So she says that after a few months of marriage, I realized that, I'm getting bored in the house and I really would want to do something. But she said, of course, I have chosen this life for myself. So I'm not saying that I want to walk out on the marriage. but I want to look for a solution within the constraints that I have for myself. And she then openly discusses it with her husband as well. And he suggests to her that, why don't you take up stock trading if it interests you? Because you're already educated in the field of finance and just, you're good with numbers. I've seen you manage a house, like, stay at home moms or wives. There is so much math that goes into running a house. And she said, okay, yeah, why not? Let me do that. And she very diligently reads books and reads, Warren Buffett, takes up books on investing, does some small courses. And finally, after 3 months of research, is able to open a demat account and starts trading. And she realizes that she's enjoying it and she's able to do it from the comfort of her house, and that way she is able to manage both her house and her ambition and passion to do something, to make, to also to an extent be financially independent through her investing. And that is the kind of message I want to give out to all the women out there, that if you have a passion, if you have an ambition, or if you're not happy with how things are currently in your life, you can find a solution if you just take a step back and analyze how you can do it. Now, like obviously, not every woman is able to start a revolution around her, right? But you can surely find some support from people around you, and you can surely, work up some solution to pursue your passion too. And especially with the digital media becoming so prevalent, it has actually given such a stage for women to, get an outlet. I think that's commendable.
Now, I want to go back and maybe we can also show that graph, that how girls and boys start out the same, but how we see them differing. If we can put that up, because that's also a very interesting graphic that shows that actually there's no difference in brain, there's no difference in power, there's no difference in anything. But yet, we tend to fall off. And I think some of the ideas that you have come up, because it's still the idea that girls do not have to work,
Right.
the idea that girls, it is optional, because that also comes as a thread in your book.
Right, yeah. So you're right, Sukriti. So what I did was I did this life cycle analysis for the men and women and how their lives vary in India. Like, what sort of gaps do they see? I started with the bit on upbringing, that most parents are, more focused on, most parents are preparing their sons to be breadwinners and they're more assertive, versus girls are primed for domesticity. And as you rightly said, we say most parents are, they don't encourage their girls to be financially independent. They're like, it's fine even if you're a stay at home person just managing the house. So that was the one gap. And the solution to this, what I cover in my book as well, is that parents need to focus on gender neutral upbringing for their kids. They need to motivate both their sons and daughters to pursue whatever passion they want. I think that's very important, to just take gender out of the equation. Even if your son wants to do something different, like, anything to do with performance art, cooking, or something, just let them do it. That's very important there. And the
But
next,
yeah, Nishtha, that's very easily said, because I know there's a lot of talk about gender agnostic. I have only two daughters, so there's no question. And I have like maybe five women in the house and one poor guy, my husband. But still, we struggle with this concept of gender agnostic, because I mean, the other day, my daughter was saying that girls run faster, that boys run faster than girls. So these ideas, they permeate no matter how much you try to bring them up in a gender agnostic manner.
that's true, because that's where, Sukriti, it's because a child interacts not just with the parents. There are teachers out there, there are peers out there. So it has to be a collective effort by all of us. But till then, to start with, at least we as parents need to get that idea that you may get different signals from outside. I'll give you a small example here. There's a nursery poem like "Mummy ki roti gol gol, Papa
हाँ,
ka paisa
पापा
gol
का
gol."
पैसा गोल गोल.
So you wouldn't believe, but this is giving that idea to the kid, right? That when it comes to cooking, it's a mom's job. When it comes to, having a career, it's a father's job. Or even when I was a kid, and both my parents are working professionals, and there were times when my father would, cook our food and pack our tiffins. And if my friend would be like, oh, this is so tasty, who made this? And I'm like, my father, they would all be shocked. And they'll like be all praises for my father. But and so that was a different messaging in school. That messaging was different. Like, it's only a mother's job to cook. But when I would say these things to my parents at home, they would correct me that no, we are equal partners. Both of us are working, and both of us, fill each other's shoes when it comes to household chores, and when it comes to raising you. And I think that's very important. So even for all the parents out there, if your child is getting that mixed those mixed messaging from the broader society, at least as parents we need to correct them at home, or at least just remove that confusion to start with. And now there are so many parents who even go and have that conversation with teachers if they feel that that gendered signaling is coming out to the students. And hence you will see schools also that they're really trying to be gender neutral in their approach, even in the curriculum, and they're just trying to be more inclusive, which is a good first step to start with at least.
No, it's a good start. Now coming back to, I think a lot of, I really loved what companies can do, and I think one of the thing is how to remove this career break penalty. And I loved what somebody said, that maybe they should remove it from our tenure, that we should be given an extra 3 years or something, that we can retire later or something, so that actually this is not taken as a penalty.
Yeah,
But
that's
what
actually
corporates do.
hmm. So those are the practical solutions that have come out, and specifically from the corporate standpoint, to make it more gender neutral in nature, I have defined something known as the power punch in the book, where I say that as an individual, be it a man or a woman, your career is not just your doing. There are five more influences that are at play in the company who have to operate in that gender neutral sense. So most importantly is actually the leadership of the company. That is very important. They need to have a very gender neutral vision. Only then will everyone in the company be aligned to it. Like I'll give a small example here, Sukriti. There's this large company called Salesforce. The CEO Mark Bainoff, he noticed that there were no women in the meetings, and he made a simple statement that I will not attend a meeting unless one third attendees are women, and that too women who are actively participating. Now, what this simple statement did was everybody in the organization, every department was like, okay, now we need to nurture our women talent, because most women leak out of the system during mid management levels. So all the business heads, they're like, no, we need to invest in their careers. They should stay in our company. They should see that long term value. And that is when they introduce those things like better better getting back into the organization after a maternity leave. Like they included it in the KPIs of managers, that if a woman is on a maternity leave, after coming back, she should stay. She should feel comfortable to stay in the company. She should not feel like, oh, I missed out on that larger chunk. I'm not getting very intellectually stimulating work. Those are the real challenges, and they can be genuinely solved if the leadership is invested into this. The second is your reporting manager. It's very important
This
that
is,
your
yeah, this is something that you said. You have to choose your boss and your company
that
very, very carefully.
carefully. That's true. And that is what this power punch says, that your leadership, your reporting manager, your peers, your juniors, and the human resources team, they all need to operate with that gender neutral ethos, and they need to, form that solid fist and a punch together to attack, to really have gender equality in true sense in the organization. And as an individual, as a young woman, let's say, who's starting out a career, again, a practical solution to this is analyze any organization that you may be interviewing for from a gender neutrality lens. Just look at it that the leadership team has women or not, or how is this company while communicating with the outside world, like someone like a P&G, Procter and Gamble, who have these products like Pampers or Whisper, or Ariel. Like you may recall their award-winning advertisements like Ariel Share the Load, where they show that men in the family are also doing laundry. and those sort of things. And so such companies are so ingrained when it comes to gender diversity and inclusion that they include it in their brand ethos too. And that is something that as young professionals people should look out for, that these can be the places where one can form a career for life.
Fantastic. Now I know that we are coming to the end. So, what are those three tips that you would like to give women to have it all?
So I think the three actionable things I would like to tell women. First of all, you can have it all. But to have it all, the first thing is delegate. You need to learn to delegate. You need to learn to prioritize. So that's one. Second, I would say is, as I had mentioned earlier, also make your partner a real partner. Let your partner also, share the load with you. That's very important. And thirdly, I would say be assertive and question the status quo. If you're not happy with how things are around you, start asking for help, seek that support, and you'll be surprised that you will get support from both your organization and your family if you just ask for it.
Well, thank you. And now I'd love to ask you what's else and what's next for you?
So I think currently I'm just focused on making this book like a change agent for the Indian society. So it's like, awakening more and more rainmakers around me, one individual and one organization at a time.
Well, thank you, Nishtha. That was excellent. I learned so much from this book, and I was really, really inspired with so many of the
Thank
stories.
you so much, Sukriti. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Have a good night, and thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you.